We dug down probably about 8 feet. We had to go below the footings of the house.
I would not spend too much money on your landscaping here.
Your round posts sound expensive. Other than that, I think you're okay on your budget.
If you're trying to flip a house, make sure you get it in the summer so that you're not trying to do landscaping in November when it might be snowing on you.
I bought this house to flip. I paid $576,000 and I've set aside $125,000 for renovations. I need to make some hard decisions about which areas of the house to improve on. I'm gonna be asking top dollar, so I need to squeeze as much luxury out of my budget as I can. I need this house to have great curb appeal. The view from the street is the first impression for buyers, and while the house has good bones, I think it could do with a bit of a facelift. So I call in Cindy, my real estate agent, to find out what buyers are looking for in a front yard.
Buyers love porches.
Okay.
You know,
so
and
keep the porch. for
definitely
sure.
keep
Yeah.
the porch. The only thing that I can see that's wrong with this house is that it's dated.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the pillars on the porch, the wrought iron pillars. I think the bricks look really dirty.
Yeah.
They look very aged and dirty. What do you do with that?
Well, have you ever had a chemical peel?
No.
Anyways, the same type of thing. It's a process where they put on a chemical and they very
Okay.
quickly rinse it off, and it just
Oh.
basically removes all that soot.
I would not spend too much money on your landscaping here.
Well, that was my other question is lawn. I mean, I don't
What
really
do
like
you
lawns.
do?
You're watering them.
Yeah, I think buyers really like low maintenance more and
Okay,
more
okay.
today. Do
Like-
not spend thousands and thousands. Just
Okay.
a little bit of tweaking with the paint and the new railings, a little bit of landscaping, some ground cover. It's really all you need to do.
Okay, a bit of tweaking and don't spend too much. I'd like to completely remove the lawn and put down some stone and some low maintenance ground cover, but I'm not quite sure what to do with the rather boring walkway. So I call in my designer Yulia and my contractor Rob to talk about the layout. The bricks right off the top,
Yeah.
getting that cleaned.
You've got some pointing to do up top there. That'll be the first thing that shows up in a home inspection, and people get concerned about water damage, so get that pointed.
The porch itself, I think you would agree, is in great shape.
Yeah.
What dates it really is, again, those columns,
And
the handrail and
Yeah.
the railing, and then this lattice work, this brown lattice work.
Yeah.
We can fix all that pretty easily, pretty cheaply.
Good,
If we
good.
replace the railing, we've got to go higher. That's not at a code height, so we're going to do a little higher than that, as well as the railing down here we'll have to deal with.
And then the big thing, which I think we'll all agree on, is the wrought iron work.
This is a budget breaker. We can cover them. That's your cost savings measure. If you want to take them out, we have to support this so it doesn't crack or fall down. You're just adding to your budget at that point. So
Yeah.
can you work around that? Can you
Oh,
work with
for
someone
sure.
else?
We can come up with a nice, smart column. Maybe add some molding at the bottom, some at the top, bulk it out a little bit.
Yeah.
Clad it with wood.
I think the deck is fine. It's the stairs. Is it a big deal to widen the stairs?
No, perfect world, I wouldn't want to do it, save you some budget money, but if it gives you a grander entrance, sure.
That's what I'm
Which
thinking.
it
we
will.
stretch
It will
them out.
for sure.
I just think they're a little small. And then it's this, the lawn, which I want to lose lawn. I mean, it's the size of a postage stamp.
Okay.
Who wants to spend the time watering this?
From what I've heard, people don't want a lot of maintenance. They want it to look good, but they don't want to be constantly having to maintain it. So
Yeah.
maybe some stone work.
Well, what's cheap is mulch.
What about the hedge? You keep that in
I
there?
like the hedges. I think the hedges are good. I mean,
They're
somebody's been
healthy.
maintaining these, so they're fine.
Sure.
It's the walkway right now, which, you know, it's just this cement. It feels like, again, the curb there. There's an opportunity to do a lovely little meandering
Yes.
path. Don't want to do cement, but maybe a tumble stone, like a man-made stone that looks like a natural stone. Is this sounding expensive?
No, your round posts sound expensive. Other than that, I think you're okay on your budget
Okay.
here. But like you said, first impression, this is a place to put some money.
Yeah.
My budget for the front of the house, or curb appeal, which is an important part, it's what's gonna make people decide whether to go into the house and further explore it, is $19,000. I think the biggest expense is gonna be the brickwork and addressing that, either having it pressure cleaned, tuck pointed. The structure itself of the front porch is fine, so I'm gonna maintain that. And I do wanna include that $19,000 for all the windows, most of the windows, not every single window, to be replaced. The biggest challenge is working on the proportions. That's why the house looks awkward. I think the structure itself is good. You know, it's a large brick detached home. It's the front porch, it's the stairs, the railings, and those columns that are really throwing it off. The brick too, that's a big part of it as well, is getting the brick cleaned, which I think is gonna really help transform the home, and addressing the tuck pointing. Really what's gonna make the impact are some of the smaller details. Like again, a great color scheme is gonna have a huge impact on there. You know, reworking the stairs and the railings, the columns alone, which again, you know, that's a, you know, $800–900, and that's gonna dramatically change that house. If I were to just do the columns, I think it would make a huge difference.
So Cam, believe it or not, at one point I was considering painting the house.
Don't paint it. It's a really pretty brick that you have here, and it's a shame to even think to paint it.
Yeah. My real estate agent said the same thing. I mean, a painted house is because generally when somebody sees a painted house, because you're trying to hide something.
The brick's in very good condition, and for the cost, you're looking at about a quarter to what it would cost you to paint it.
One of my concerns was just how harsh the chemicals are. And I'm assuming you're putting a chemical on that then it gets rinsed off.
It is exactly that. It's a very safe restoration chemical. It's more of a detergent with a mild acid in it.
Okay.
It's all rinsed off afterwards. It's biodegradable. It breaks down within 28 days. It's safe on windows, metal surfaces, everything except for soft metals such as copper.
How long is it going to take us to do, well, I guess we'll start with the face because that's the most important part.
We're going to be in and out of here pretty much today.
Really?
One day.
That's great. I like that a lot. That's
bang,
excellent.
bang.
Get in there, yeah. Oh, I love that that's all coming off so easily. Wow. Looks fantastic. Wow.
You want to keep any of this, eh?
No.
Landscapers can take that one out. Get it?
I think so.
You're showing me up.
I know. It moves like about an inch.
Tom's got a big
Here it comes.
up. That's embarrassing.
Yeah. Okay, stick him in the middle. Let's see. Rob just notified me that my brick columns have to be completely rebuilt. When we had them pressure washed, I wasn't completely pleased on how they had turned out, and I was considering painting them, but it's the added expense. But more so, it's the delays. We're looking at least a week before the columns can get rebuilt, and then we can measure for the round columns that we want to sit above that. So that's probably my biggest worry right now, because I am chasing the weather.
I'm supposed to have the front done in about 2 weeks. The setback for us is this pillar here. Got to take it down. To take it down, I have to support the porch roof. I have to get these columns out. They can rebuild this. That's fine. They can't get here for a week and a half, which leaves me 2 days in which to do the following. Order my columns. They take 4 days. Put the columns in, lower the porch back down on top. Put the stairs back onto the porch, put the front fascia on the porch, put the railing on the porch, paint the porch, get the landscaping done for that following Monday. That gives me 2 days to do all that.
Okay, I'm thinking front porch. I have this idea, more
Yes,
ideas,
Peter, yes.
is introducing some fabric out there as well. Something as simple as a couple of drapery panels for a couple of reasons. Privacy, just to sort of, and just to define the porch area more. Like, I love the idea of somebody sitting out there having coffee. It's a rainy day. It's a covered porch area.
So are you thinking formal, casual?
Well, casual, definitely casual. Something that works with our color scheme. And you know, doing like grommet rings so that they pull really easily. Using fabric on the front porch may seem like I'm kind of going over and beyond. But because my landscaping is gonna be fairly minimal because of the time of the year, I really want that front porch to be an amazing selling feature. It's truly when somebody comes up those steps, they can envision, you know, coffee in the morning, flipping the paper, the weekends, it's gonna be amazing. So that's why I think and I don't need very much fabric, it's just a little bit, just to sort of define those areas, create a bit of privacy, really make that porch feel like an outdoor room.
I have to be honest, I'm not loving the fact that we're looking at maybe doing drapery on the porch. I just think we're going to all the trouble of gutting this whole house, renovating it, to make it look new and fresh and inviting and get a good dollar for it. And then we're going back in time by putting Laura Ingalls sort of drapery on the front. It's not a contemporary feel for me.
One of the issues that arose when we investigated the plumbing in the home was the fact that the drains were clogged. There had been roots growing in there. We also discovered that there was clay pipe down below. So we had to dig down, and we dug down probably about 8 feet. We had to go below the footings of the house in order to remove all the clay pipe and replace it with new plastic pipe. And this is the most evil job so far that we've had to deal with. Here's a tip for you. If you're trying to flip a house, make sure you get it in the summer so that you're not trying to do landscaping in November when it might be snowing on you.
Those are too skinny, kind of Charlie Brown Christmas tree. That's not gonna work.
Okay. Again, you've got that same nice sweep. It's not gonna get any taller than it is, and it has yellow flowers in the late spring.
I love the leaves too, they're so tiny. It almost looks like a bonsai sort of thing.
Well, it's not oppressive. And the bark has sort of that greeny yellow color right through the winter.
That'll work with our color scheme.
Great.
I really like actually that second one. I just find the proportions are perfect.
Great.
Tom has gone ahead and placed the stones for me. You can't exactly move these manually. I opted to place one on either side of the walkway and then create a little bit more weight on the opposite side. I find it helps to sort of define the garden somewhat and gives us a more of a sculptural, organic look. I also like the idea that over time, I'm just placing mulch down, but the idea would you'd have ground cover, and once that ground cover kind of fills in between the cracks, you get a real sort of natural, organic look. We've also gone ahead and I've selected the stone to relate back to the natural stone step that Tom placed. I also like the idea that the stone makes the tumble stone, which is a man-made material, look a little bit more convincing. If I wanted to try to do this entire walkway in natural stone, which would have been beautiful, it would have been very, very expensive. So this was certainly a more economical route. I have to start saving money to start paying for some of the cost overruns. Ideally, I would have loved to have replaced the door, but I'm looking at least $1,000 by the time I buy the door and get it installed. So I'm gonna try to work with the existing door. It's a good, solid door. I'm happy with that. One of the big issues with it is the fact that they've hacked away at it. They've cut off, it looks like about 2 inches. So I'm gonna get Rob to help me by filling in the bottom. I think we could just do a solid piece of wood. Again, it's a solid door, so glued, screwed. I can wood fill one side, and then I have ideas on how to dress up the outside. But I need a lock set and then a toe kick. So that's what I want to hunt around for. And then I can paint the door, and I think that should work.
The snow has melted and the brick masons have come and gone. Now we just need to put together all the elements that were pre-built and waiting to be installed. The stairs, the railings, and the columns. If the weather cooperates, we should be able to put the finishing touches on the front yard before winter truly sets in.
Look good, look good. It looks incredible.
I'm glad you're happy.
Love it, love it. One of the details I want to introduce for the front porch in order to create privacy and also to add a bit more of a design detail is to introduce, believe it or not, drapery panels on the inside of the porch. The fabric I selected is a black stripe that sits on sort of a neutral background. And what I need to do is just stitch around all 4 sides. When I get to the top, I'll leave about a foot because I need to get in there and essentially reverse the fabric. This isn't necessarily a fabric that's specifically designed for outdoors. It's just an inexpensive cotton. So it can get thrown into the wash if it gets a little dirty. I'm not gonna close it right up. I'm gonna leave, as I mentioned, about a foot, just enough so I can get my hand in there and flip this fabric back onto the print side. Reaching my hand in, basically going to the opposite corner. It's kind of like the way you get a duvet in a duvet cover. So you flip it. There we go. Now I need to open this right up. We're also gonna iron it, so we'll get nice crisp edges once we iron it. Although you do still need to poke out that corner. Like those corners, I don't want round corners, I want nice square corners. And then that last little bit, once we press it, I can just go back onto the machine and surface stitch it. You'll never notice it. With all of my seams pressed, I'm now ready to start working on installing the grommet rings. I found it easier to make a template. This way I could equally space out all of the grommet rings. So I'll line that up with my pressed fabric and then just trace out my cutouts. Now, the cutouts are just slightly larger than the inside measure of the grommet ring so that the fabric will sit in there. Trace onto my fabric. And now cutting out the fabric, I found it easier to sort of fold it over, start by doing sort of a half moon cutout. There's a couple of advantages to doubling up the fabric. I mean, obviously you get the same look on both sides, which I absolutely love, and I think the neighbors will appreciate it, but it also adds a lot of weight to the fabric. So I don't have to put any weights along the bottom, and it literally just snaps together. You'll kind of hear it snap. And that's it. That bottom edge, I just pressed it and then just did a surface stitch in order to close up that last 12 inches that I left open. I've got my drapery panels up and I think they look absolutely fantastic. They're just such a great, relatively simple idea. They provide a bit of privacy, helps make the porch feel more like an outdoor room, and it's a nice sort of designer detail that potential buyers will really appreciate. There's nothing more important than a first impression. You really only get one chance at that, and I think we've managed to create quite an impressive first impression. I love the way we've managed to update the home, but still stay true to its traditional roots. The columns actually are a great example of that. Bringing in the round columns, which we did discover originally the home had round columns instead of square, so they look fantastic. In order to showcase the front porch and make it feel like an inviting space, I wanted some furniture out here, didn't have any budget to buy pieces, so I borrowed some pieces from a friend. When you're flipping a house, this is when you want to call in all your favors. So there are a couple of chairs, they're outdoor chairs and a side table, which I've accessorized with some bright, vibrant pillows.
When you're flipping a house, you really have to design around a lot of the existing structure that you have. You really want to be able to reuse a lot of the materials and still make it feel new. We were really pleased at how much of the existing porch we were able to reuse by refinishing a lot of it, by reinforcing a lot of it. We didn't have to bring in a lot of new material.
Details like the drapery panels I think look fantastic. Introducing black. Black is always a great way to sort of add a crisp, modern element to a home. Details like the runner are not only practical, but they add a little bit more character and dimension. The front lawn, I wanted something environmental, something low maintenance. So essentially all the mulch, which people can later on develop further and start developing gardens, I think works really well.
From day one, the porch was a pain. Starting off with the column that was crooked that we had to fix. Starting out with having to support the whole thing, getting halfway through the job and then realizing we got to dig a hole underneath the porch, which that was awful. That's an 8-foot hole underneath a 3-foot high porch. So there were so many things holding this up. The weather, working under a tarp for 3 days. I gotta congratulate Peter. The guy was out here with us. He was out here for 3 days, painting underneath the tarp, scraping.
My budget for all the exterior work was $19,000. I did go over budget. I came in at $20,800. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, but we got a lot of big ticket items included in that. All my windows and doors, $7,500. The brickwork, the restorative brickwork, $5,000. $2,500 for the pressure wash, $1,500 for the woodworking, $1,500 for my walkway and stones, $1,000 for my land survey, which I did include in my exterior work budget, $1,000 for any of the painting that I couldn't do, all the hard to reach places. Then we have $500 for hardware, $100 for electrical, $100 for my drapery panels, and $100 for lighting. In total, $20,800. Certainly well worth it. There's really nothing I would change about it. I'm thrilled with the way it's turned out.
Peter made the right move by not tearing the porch off. It's expensive. It would have opened a can of worms with codes and permits because we would have to structure it completely differently than it exists, a lot more foundation work. When you renovate something, the rules are different than when you rebuild something. So, and it didn't need it. Bottom line, we had one pillar that was a little crooked. We fixed that, and it's solid. It's a solid porch.
The front of the house for me is a really important area. I mean, it's pride of ownership. It sort of implies kind of the way you live and the way you take care of your home.